An elderly woman spent her final savings on an abandoned junkyard that everyone called worthless. But buried beneath decades of rust and forgotten metal, she discovered something that would change everything. A find so valuable it would not only clear her debts but transform her entire existence. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Margaret stood at the entrance of the junkyard, her hands trembling as she held the rusty keys. 72 years old, with barely enough money left to buy groceries for a month, she had just made the most reckless decision of her life. The property looked like a graveyard for machines, twisted metal, broken engines, and mountains of scrap stretched as far as her tired eyes could see. Her son had begged her not to do this. Her daughter had stopped speaking to her entirely. But Margaret had seen something in the auction listing that others had missed. A single line buried in the legal documents. Previous owner was a private collector. Those 4 words had haunted her dreams for weeks. She had worked as a librarian for 47 years, saving every possible penny. Then her husband got sick. The medical bills consumed everything. After he passed, the debt collectors did not stop calling. They wanted $60,000. Money she did not have. Money she would never have with her small pension. So when she saw this junkyard listed for almost nothing, something inside her sparked to life. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was intuition, but she liquidated her retirement account, paid the $12,000 asking price, and became the owner of 5 acres of what everyone else called garbage. The first week was brutal. Margaret arrived each morning at dawn, wearing thick gloves and boots she had bought from a thrift store. She pulled apart piles of metal, organized sections, and created pathways through the chaos. Neighbors driving past would slow down and stare. Some laughed. Others shook their heads with pity. The elderly woman digging through trash became a local spectacle, but Margaret did not care about their opinions. She was searching for something. She did not know exactly what, but the previous owner had been described in old newspaper clippings as an eccentric millionaire who collected rare items. If he had owned this land, there had to be more than just scrap metal. Days turned into weeks. Her hands developed blisters that burst and formed calluses. Her back ached so badly some mornings. She could barely stand, but she kept searching. She found old car parts, broken furniture, stacks of moldy magazines. Nothing valuable, nothing worth the gamble she had taken. Her daughter called once, asking if she had come to her senses yet. Margaret hung up without answering. Doubt crept in during the lonely nights. What if everyone was right? What if she had thrown away her last chance at security for nothing? Then, on a Thursday morning, exactly 23 days after she bought the property, Margaret noticed something odd. In the back corner of the junkyard, hidden beneath a collapsed aluminum shed, there was a concrete structure. It looked like a small garage, but the entrance was completely blocked. She spent hours clearing the debris, piece by piece, until finally she could see a metal door. It was locked with a chain so rusted it crumbled when she hit it with a hammer. Her heart pounded as she pulled the door open. Darkness swallowed the space inside. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped through. The beam of light swept across the room and stopped on something that made her gasp. Covered in a tarp, sitting in the center of the concrete floor, was the outline of a vehicle. Margaret's hands shook as she grabbed the fabric and pulled. The tarp fell away in a cloud of dust. Beneath it sat a car so stunning, so impossibly pristine, that for a moment she forgot to breathe. The vehicle gleamed even under the layer of dust. Every curve, every detail spoke of extraordinary craftsmanship and rarity. This was not just any car. This was a collector's dream. Margaret stumbled backward, her mind racing. She had seen enough auction shows on television to know that rare vehicles could be worth fortunes, but she needed to be sure. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures from every angle. Her fingers fumbled as she searched online for similar models. What she found made her knees weak. Vehicles like this one had sold at auctions for millions of dollars. Millions. She sat down hard on the concrete floor, staring at the discovery that had been hidden in plain sight. The eccentric millionaire had not just collected junk. He had hidden a treasure, but Margaret did not celebrate. Not yet. She knew that word of this discovery could bring problems. Thieves, scammers, people who would try to take advantage of an old woman who suddenly possessed something incredibly valuable. She carefully covered the vehicle again, locked the garage, and piled debris back in front of the entrance. Then she went home and made a plan. She contacted a specialized auction house, one that dealt exclusively with rare collector items. They agreed to send an expert appraiser, but only after she provided proof of ownership and photographs. When the appraiser arrived 3 days later, a thin man with silver glasses who introduced himself as Mr. Chen, his expression remained neutral as Margaret led him to the hidden garage. But when she unveiled the vehicle, his composure shattered. He walked around it 7 times, examining every detail, taking measurements, checking serial numbers. Finally, he turned to Margaret with wide eyes. This vehicle was one of only a handful ever made. The craftsmanship, the materials, the design, everything was extraordinary. Conservative auction estimate would start at $2.8 million. But in the right sale, with the right buyers, it could go much higher. Margaret heard the words, but they felt unreal. She had spent her last savings on this junkyard while drowning in debt. Now she owned something worth millions. Mr. Chen explained. The process, authentication, documentation, marketing to elite collectors worldwide. It would take time, but he guaranteed the results would be life-changing. Margaret signed the contracts that afternoon. 4 months later, Margaret sat in a private auction room, watching through a video screen as wealthy collectors from 6 countries bid against each other. The numbers climbed higher and higher. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair as the final bid was announced, $4.2 million. After the auction house took their commission and taxes were paid, Margaret walked away with $3.1 million. She paid off every cent of her debt the next morning. $60,000 that had felt like a mountain now seemed like pocket change. But Margaret did not stop there. She used part of the money to start a business, something she had dreamed about for decades. A community center for elderly people who felt forgotten. A place where they could learn new skills, start small businesses, and prove that age was not the end of possibility. She hired people from her neighborhood, invested in the local economy, and became known not as the crazy old woman who bought a junkyard, but as the entrepreneur who bet on herself when everyone else had given up on her. Her children called to apologize. Her friends asked how she had known. Margaret simply smiled and said she had learned something important. Sometimes the greatest treasures are buried beneath what everyone else refuses to see. You just have to be brave enough to dig. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.